think this thing looks great.
I like the design. I really
do?
This would be great in the United States.
This new model makes the old SUV look like a real dinosaur.
Check this out. I'm in the brand new all-electric Ford Explorer, and have a look at this screen. It's called the Sync Move, and it does move up and down.
Oh, have a look at those. Hello, yes, curbs. This is the new Ford Explorer, and the first thing I want to say is it's not as big as you might think. See, based on the name and its generally brawny American silhouette, you could be forgiven for thinking this is a giant full-size SUV, but no. At less than 4.5 meters long, it's about the same size as a Kia Niro. Not an especially massive car then, but a massive deal for Ford. You see, if the Mustang Mach-E was the fancy, quite expensive flagship, what we have here is the volume seller. Ford wants to build and flog a lot of these things.
The new Explorer is the latest model in Ford's European lineup. It's a mid-sized crossover that has room for 5, it'll sit slightly below the more premium Mach-E, and will be built in Germany with Europeans in mind. In fact, its job is to help with the complete reinvention of the Ford brand on this continent. In terms of size, it's 1.6 meters high, 1.87 meters wide, and 4.46 meters long, so somewhere between a Cougar and the Mach-E. Think Tesla Model Y, but wider and not quite as long, and you won't be too far off. The styling is chunky and not too fussy in profile, with wheels measuring from 19 to 21 inches.
The really interesting thing about this for me is that it's the first non-VW Group car to sit on VW Group's MEB platform, the same platform found on VW ID4, ID3, ID Buzz, Audi Q4, Skoda Enyaq, Cupra Born. Good Lord, half of the industry is using this platform at this point, and I don't blame them because it is fantastic and modular and it gets the job done.
That's interesting. I can immediately see at the front anyway a bit of F-150 Lightning with this sort of like strong kind of blanking panel, and I really like the F-150 Lightning. I think it's a hell of a car.
Let's begin at the front, as we always do. Really smart looking thing, I think. I'm a big fan of the general exterior of this car. It is a muscular, brawny looking thing. Ford have very deliberately kind of reverted back to their American roots with their design language. This is quite deliberately a rather muscular and American feeling piece of design. And I think that's going to work really well with European customers. It's a smart looking face. And what I like about it is that at first glance it is quite boxy and squared off, but actually look closely and edges are a little bit softer and more rounded than you think. And what Ford says is that is the perfect balance of a strong appearance while still maintaining a decent drag coefficient and aerodynamic properties in the name of range and efficiency, which is a difficult balancing act, let's be honest.
And you can see that strong American styling influence in the front. The lamps are quite generous in their proportion, they're assertive without being aggressive. The car looks very bold and confident.
Yeah.
And quite proud as well. The nameplate, you see, being an electrified vehicle, we had the opportunity to do a new shield graphic instead of the typical ICE grille. And with that, we were able to really scale up the Ford logo and be very proud of our brand. So it's an all-new Ford logo with bright white script.
A couple of design things that I really do like at the front. Love the fact that Ford has just done away with the grille completely, not bothering, even pretending. We're sort of seeing that as a design trend, I think, with this sort of second generation of EVs, if you will. Polestar have binned off the faux grille on the updated 2. And again, Ford with the Explorer, why even pretend? Why even try to make it look like an ICE cars? Those are old. I like that. This is actually a new Ford badge, but it's quite old school in its appearance. I'm a fan of that as well. It seems like everyone is going really minimal and black and white with their badging these days. Ford have decided for something a little bit more retro. And I'll tell you what I really do like. These two bulges in the bonnet just gives it a really muscular front end. Not that many lines or creases on this car in general, but the ones that there are really quite impactful.
If you're wondering whether it has a front trunk, well, it looks like it should because it's such a large frontal area, but because it's based on the VW MEB platform, that sadly isn't the case.
Size-wise, this fits between what? Cougar and Mach-E?
No, it's actually a little bit smaller than a Cougar.
It's smaller than a Cougar.
Yeah,
right.
so this is 4.46 meters in length.
Yeah.
So it's bigger than a Puma.
Yeah.
Slightly bigger than a Focus.
Yeah.
But smaller than a Cougar.
And is it on an all-new platform, or is it sharing this platform with something that we already know?
The platform is part of an alliance, but the vehicle itself is very much a Ford vehicle.
You can tow with them too, with limits of between 1,000 and 1,200 kilograms. And all Explorers have a heat pump, which extracts warmth from the surrounding air to heat the interior. It's a bit like putting the aircon in reverse and is far more efficient than using heating elements powered from the battery.
We've said about 500 kilometres. It's about 300 miles.
Yeah, you could say that.
We can say that?
Yeah.
And is it going to be 4 and 2-wheel drive, or is it going to be 4-wheel drive only?
There's both options.
Same as the Mach-E, so you can get single motor, twin motor.
Round the side. Again, really struggling to get my head around the proportions of this car. A bit like the Jeep Avenger that we had a look at not long ago. It really just looks so much bigger than it is because of its brawny shape. And I think that's largely due to this longish bonnet, which is not something we've seen on an MEB platform car before, and this high shoulder line that goes the whole length of the car. Also helped by the 21s that you get on this launch car. Have a look at those. Hello, yes, curbs.
Design. What I like about the profile of it is it's quite simple, because there's a lot of busy design going on these days.
Absolutely.
And it can be a bit much.
You know, in the world of vehicles, there's kind of a lot of cars fighting for attention. And the way that we thought we could really have a point of difference was actually a kind of a less is more approach. So there's a kind of a certain minimalism to the styling. There's only a few key lines, and there's a certain purity that we really tried to retain with designing this car. So you see the way the cabin sits really cleanly onto the body.
Yeah.
That front fender line that just comes straight off the belt and into the car.
This looks quite thin and probably good visibility.
Absolutely. So we've done this intentionally for a couple of reasons. Give a more light and airy feel inside, so you have no obscuration, whether you're a driver or a passenger. And also to modernize and signify that this is a BEV electrified vehicle. So we have this more digital inspired graphic, which will actually have full transparency through what looks opaque from the outside on the inside.
So you won't see it from the inside?
You won't see anything.
Really?
Yeah.
And last thing on the side profile, let's talk about those really, really short overhangs. Such a stubby thing, isn't it? And this is, of course, an advantage of that MEB platform, pushing the wheels way out to the corners, maximum space inside for you and your feet. But also in the context of this really kind of boxy, muscular design, it just adds to that kind of Tonka truck proportions. I think this thing looks great.
So these are, what size are these? Hang on.
So these are 21-inch.
21s.
And we've got 3 different wheel options. We've got 19, 20 and 21. So this is a top spec wheel.
Yeah.
But 19 is your smallest size. So already quite a decent offering.
Big. Yeah.
Exactly.
Round the back, again, smart looking design, not too fussy, but really effective, I think. Would potentially be fair to say that whoever designed this was a fan of Range Rovers. I'm seeing a little bit of Evoque, I'm seeing a little bit of Range Rover Sport. I mean that as good thing, of course.
Can I just say, what I really like about the back of the Explorer is it's quite abrupt.
Absolutely.
There's not a fastback to it. There's an awful lot of kind of family SUV-ish cars about, a lot of them being electric, and they're fastbacks, which, although it's probably good for aero and stuff, it's a nightmare for boot space. This is almost vertical here.
I'll open the boot, and as you can see, it's got a fairly large boot, in this case 450 litres, very sizable, and you've got some underfloor storage underneath with a thin area down here for storing even more stuff. Not massive, but plenty of flexibility. It's a decent size.
Boot space is listed at 450 litres with the rear seats up, which is bigger than what's on offer from the Mustang Mach-E, but down on what an ID4 offers.
And this is what the interior is going to look like. This is it. Look, my seat even moves. Ooh, Some things are a little bit shonky. I shouldn't do that. This is probably priceless and one of a kind. But we do get a really good sense of this interior from this, and it's quite interesting. Some interesting choices. Let's start with the glove box, shall we? Because it's blummin' massive. Of course, MEB platform, flat floor, loads of space to play with, but instead of giving you the kind of open plan vibe, they've gone for the more cockpity feel and use that space as immense storage. So we lift the lid, we have a tray that can be moved around, we have cup holders that can be removed if you want to and placed just down here in a handy little space. And what you then have is a 17-litre glove box. 17 litres. You can put your whole handbag in there, you can pop a laptop in there. There's this little dividey piece, which is also an ice scraper, apparently. That is the biggest glove box I've ever seen in my silly life. It's absolutely whopping, and I like this as a practical use of the MEB platform. It's nice to have the open plan thing and play footsie with your passenger, but I'd rather have usable storage space, and there's a lot of it in here. Moving on.
Now the Mega Console I thought was something that you might be able to play Mario Kart on, but it's not. It's this locker here. So underneath this handy armrest is this enormous storage space. There's a separator to stop things rattling around, which pulls out, and you can use it as an ice scraper. Handy. Now you could fit 3 1.5 litre soft drink bottles in here, or if you want to remove this and it stores under the screen so it's not rattling around too much, you can then put a laptop in there or your handbag, shut it up and then pop to the shops without worrying that it's on site.
So inside, Ford have tried to deliver an ultra modern and high-tech interior, and the materials are actually pretty decent. This isn't actually leather, even though it looks like it. It's actually called Sensico, which is a man-made material, but it isn't actually cheap feeling. It feels quite decent. Loads of space back here. That front seat's adjusted for me, and just look at the amount of legroom I've got to play with. That's a lot. And headroom, very generous as well, despite it having a metre squared of panoramic glass sunroof.
And get a load of this. This touchscreen is adjustable. If I just pinch this button down here, look at this. Oh, I can move the entire screen up by about 40 degrees of angle. Look at this. Have you ever seen anything like it in your life? Why, you ask? Well, the idea is when you're not really using the screen so much, you're doing a drive that you know very well, you have it in this reclined position where it's more out of your way, it sits more flush, it looks nicer. But when you're using it, when you're using your sat nav, you just pop it up here, much more present in your line of sight, big tall vertical screen, barely having to lower my gaze from the road, and when you're done with it, back down it goes. And behind it, super secret storage locker. Look at that, just a little space here for your valuables. Let's say you're going for a swim on the beach, pop your bits in there, close it down. That'll have a steel locking mechanism and will lock when the car is locked, and your bits are hidden from sight. Oh.
We've kept the climate control, HVAC controls always on the bottom.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go shifting through any menus, everything that customer needs is always there, and then the active part of the screen will change.
Okay.
You've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and the home screen is all fully customizable, so you can go to whatever shortcuts you want straight away. We have what we call a tech layer in this soundbar feature.
I was going to ask about this.
Yeah,
it does
looks
look
very
like
cool, doesn't it?
surround sound speaker or something.
Yeah. So that also has an ambient lighting strip.
This is a storage space for 2 smartphones. This one on the left is a wireless phone charger. This big old screen does of course come as standard with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and it's the biggest execution of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto that I've ever seen. It's like a full iPhone screen, and the infotainment itself is very smartphone inspired. Gone is the slightly bizarre dial within the screen of the Mackie. Never really liked that very much. Fundamentally the software is much the same. Look at that, it's a full iPhone screen, but just emphasis on user friendliness. Nice big screen, big easy to hit buttons. Down here our climate control is permanently there.
Behind this squircle steering wheel, which is half square and half circle, are some stalks here which I recognise from the Volkswagen ID Buzz, and we didn't like them in that, and I don't think we're going to like them here either. So this one here does the gears, and this one does everything else. So you've got this kind of Rubik's Cube puzzle to solve if you want to turn on the rear wiper. There are a few other Volkswagen influences, and the one that worries me most is these window switches here. Now, there are only 2 buttons to do 4 windows, and it means you have to press buttons and take your eye off the road to get it to work properly. It really annoys me in the Born, and I think it's going to annoy me here too. Behind this squircle steering wheel, which is half square and half circle, are some stalks here which I recognise from the Volkswagen ID Buzz, and we didn't like them in that, and I don't think we're going to like them here either. So this one here does the gears, and this one does everything else. So you've got this kind of Rubik's Cube puzzle to solve if you want to turn on the rear wiper.
Other things of note in here, just nice clean dash design, all very horizontal bits. We've got a 2-tone thing going on here. This is actually a sound bar, which is quite nice feeling and nice to look at and just adds a sense of premiumness. We've got a squircle steering wheel. That's the word used in the press material, mind you. These slightly make alarm bells ring in my head. They do give me kind of VW ID PTSD, but hopefully they are also nice and haptic and tactile and accurate as well. These ham fists, I could press 3 of those buttons by accident quite easily. Hopefully not the case. This gear selector is familiar from MEB cars, and just that nice small simple gauge cluster in front of the driver. Just the information that you need, nothing else, minimal distraction. I think what I would say about this interior is it doesn't look space age, it's not game changing in terms of the way it's laid out. It just seems to be very well done. I hope that it's going to be really intuitive, really user friendly, really easy to live with. Think about the VW ID4, this car's direct sibling and most likely rival. What is the thing that that car is not? User friendly, intuitive as far as the cabin. I think what VW may have done when lending Ford their MEB platform is created their worst nightmare.
So, another family-friendly electric car, circa 300-mile range, priced at around about 40 grand, goes on sale imminently, deliveries at the end of the year.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot of competition in this space. When people are going to think about buying a Ford Explorer, they'll also be considering cars from Tesla, like the Model Y, Skoda Enyaq, VW ID4, and a ton of others emerging out of China. Will it be any good?
We knew that the electric new Fords needed to start coming thick and fast. Ford's already committed to making half of its global output fully electric by 2030. The Explorer is one of 9 new fully electric Fords coming in just a couple of years, and the company's investing $50 billion in not just building hundreds of thousands of EVs, but making the factories that produce them carbon neutral as well. Almost every car maker is striving to get ahead in the EV arms race to be an electric trendsetter. But for Ford, a brand that's built its reputation on having something for everyone, it's going to be a painful process. It is going to piss some people off. You can't help thinking that the future of Ford, for the first time in a very long time, feels like a gamble.